Yo, what is going on, people? Welcome to Throwdown Your Questions, episode 491. I'm your host, Tony Polanco, and tonight I'm joined by Emilio Lopez.
What's up, people? How's it going?
Chris Seeley.
Hey, what's up, everyone?
Carlos Romero.
Yo, yo, yo.
Richard Bailey Jr.
What's up, everybody?
And Brian Majoma.
What's up? What's up?
All right, guys, you already know, back with another one. Brett gives you guys a shout out. He was actually here before for a little bit talking Elden Ring, but, you know, he's still kind of out of it with his whole spine stuff. So he'll try to be on, but, you know, obviously, you know, his health comes first before anything. So we want him to rest up and play that Elden Ring, you know, getting his ass beat, as we all are. Anyway, so I'm just going to get into it. So first things first, I didn't edit these questions or even look at them beforehand. So if any of these read weird, blame yourselves. You know? Oh, man. All right. And again, I'm just going to read these in the order we got them. Geno Breaker 26 starts us off. Do you think a Marvel versus Capcom style game with a roster of anime characters would sell? Examples would be Spike from Cowboy Bebop, Kaneda from Akira, and Eva Unit 1, along with some newer characters for broad appeal like the main guys from Demon Slayer or Jujutsu Kaisen. Now, here's the thing. Jump Force exists. It's basically that same deal. You have, like, you know, Luffy and Goku and Ichigo, a bunch of these characters. So you kind of have, it's not Marvel's Capcom style, obviously, but you do have a bunch of that. And, man, you could speak more to this. A game like this would be a licensing nightmare.
Yeah, that's specifically why you have a situation like Tatsunoko versus Capcom, where it's a specific company that has multiple properties, so you can get away with, like, you know, you could have Tatsunoko versus Capcom, or you could do like a idea of like Osamu Tezuka or Tezuka Productions versus a Capcom. It'd have to be something like that. A company that has a bunch of different properties. That's why Marvel vs. Capcom sort of works, because Capcom has a bunch of well-known video game properties. You know, Marvel has a bunch of well-known, comic book characters and properties, so you can easily kind of meld them together. To understand, to get a good idea of like the market, the nightmare that one of those is. Think about something like Super Smash Bros., right? The only reason why Super Smash Bros. Even happens is because they were willing to go through the cycle of trying to get, you know, everything, get all the rights to those properties, or in some of those situations, it's more of a reuse of a pre-existing property. That's why Snake hasn't actually changed since the last time you saw him in Sonic and a bunch of those. Because there's maybe something that's in their contract that says, okay, if you use the same old one, it's fine. But if you decide to do anything new, we need to approve that and all that other stuff. So it's a lot of dotting I's, crossing T's, and all kinds of other stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, Mandy, to your point, like even with Jump Force here, one of the reasons they were able to make that happen is because a lot of those
same publisher,
all of them, yeah, it's all from Jump Force.
It's all Shonen Jump. But yeah, if you want to do another thing, you would have to take another imprint, like publishing imprint, and do something like that.
Yeah.
So like, let's say they did Capcom versus Shonen Jump or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
It would have to be something like that. It would have to be, and then the thing is that you would also, I would also think that being that it's a somewhat unrelated type, they also may have to do some sort of conjiggering with the actual creators, because the creators still do own the rights to their properties.
Yeah, so this game, I think it would actually sell, but it'd be impossible.
Yeah, it'd be really, 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 really difficult.
Yeah, because right here, like, Ava, right? That's a Gainax.
That's not Gainax.
Who owns that?
Ava is owned by its original creator. Gainax is actually Gainax is actually going out of business. They filed for bankruptcy.
That's right. Yeah. So Evangelion is what's his face? Oh, oh my God.
It's Ono's company. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I'm guessing the same thing with Akira, right? Like it's Otomo. It belongs to him.
It's Otomo. Yeah. It's Otomo and may possibly the publisher of Akira, but I don't know. So it'd be a lot of different things. Like here's one thing you can sort of
by the way. I'd be like, why am I blanking on that? So, Hidetaki Anno. He did.
Yeah, I said Anno.
No, I think we said something. I think we both said something else.
I said Anno.
No,
but anyway,
we both said Ono.
Yeah, Ono. Okay, whatever.
Face up.
It's Yoko Ono for real. Anyway, it's like okay, so you could kind of get away with this one. So Bandai had produced a lot of anime, right? So theoretically, you could do a bunch of Bandai created anime.
Yeah, you could that
would include Cowboy Bebop and a few, quite a bit of other things. Yeah. So yeah.
Okay, yeah, Cowboy Bebop, Gundam, and a bunch of stuff. But getting some of these others might be a little trickier. But yeah, I do think it would sell. People would love these properties, but it would just be very difficult. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, good stuff there. Next up here, another anime game-related question. Do you think the new Dragon Ball Z Sparking game will be as popular as the older Tenkaichi games back in the day? I don't know.
I can't answer that.
Neither can I. I've never liked any of these games, man. To be honest, I love Dragon Ball Z. Obviously, we even did on Throwdown. I even like when Akira Toriyama passed away, we had a little segment, and I purposely made a video. We all love Dragon Ball around here, but me personally, I've never liked the games. The only Dragon Ball Z game I like is the Arc System Works game, and that's because it's an Arc System Works game. Even like the closest one I got to kind of almost liking was Kakarot, and even that had a lot of issues, these really loose controls, not very precise. So I don't really care about this parking game. I know, correct me if I'm wrong. I think the big deal about the game is like you could have alternate stories. Like for example, what if, I don't know, what if you didn't kill Raditz or some shit like that? I don't know. But you know what I'm saying? You could change the history or whatever. I think that's like the main selling point. But yeah, I don't think any of us here on this podcast are equipped to answer this question because we don't care for Dragon Ball Z games, So, yeah. All right, moving on here. Jolly Yellow Nerd. Do you think there is a chance that if the Marvel vs. Capcom collection sells well, that we may not only get Marvel vs. Capcom 4, but also perhaps get the other crossover games, like finally getting Capcom versus SNK 3? Okay. Again, this is the first time I'm looking at these questions, but it made me think. With Capcom versus SNK 3, I think it may be tied. This is just me literally just having this thought right now. It may depend on how well received the Fatal Fury characters are in Street Fighter 6. Like maybe if there's some interest, people go, "Oh, let's finally release Marvel vs. SNK 3," because they did 2 games, then that was it. So maybe. I
think so. I think that's what the thing is. That's them testing the waters without actually going through the process. So what if they released another? Once these guys drop out, what if the next step of this was Capcom versus SNK Fighter Collection? Because there's also multiple examples of games that fit into that fighting collection that would fit in that collection too.
Like what?
I think there's another SNK Capcom thing that's somewhere in there too. It was like a Game Boy game that they did, or something like that, or like a Game Boy Advance game. So there's a couple of things that they could kind of work into it. So if those characters do well in there, I could definitely see them wanting to put them in.
Yeah. So yeah, it's possible. Do it. Yeah, they probably would want to get some more crossover games, like brand new ones, because I think they're pretty much going to exhaust all the ones that are currently out or have been released. And nobody wants a re-release of Infinite. Let's just be real here. Nobody wants that shit. I was watching this video from this YouTuber called Top Hat Gaming. He's like a retro YouTuber, right?
A British guy, yeah.
British guy, yeah. By the way, his wife is Lady Decade. And this is how I discovered that, because I watched one of his videos and I watched Lady Decade video. I'm like, the editing is exactly the same. So I just typed Top Hat Gaming, Lady Decade. Turns out they're married. So that makes sense. I'm like, the editing was exactly the same. It's like, hold on. So obviously, anyway. So oh my God, now I lost my train of thought. So he was talking about, oh yeah. So he was talking about Marvel vs. Capcom, all this stuff. He's very happy, obviously. And he reminded me of that bullshit Capcom tried to pull. Remember when in Infinite you couldn't have X-Men, and they dared to say, people didn't really care about the characters. They cared about the movesets. Remember that bullshit? Like, are you kidding me?
Yep.
And then I was talking to one of my other friends, and he was like, yeah, that community manager is not around anymore, is he?
No.
It's true. Yeah, I was like, oh, people like Magneto because he has a, 8-way combo. I'm like, no, they liked him because he's Magneto. Fuck out of here. Or they were like, oh yeah, if you like Phoenix, Carol Danvers has the same moves. Nobody gives a fuck about Carol Danvers. They want Phoenix. They want Jean Grey. It was ridiculous.
But I mean, to be honest, it's doing those things, and this is what goes back to that original question. It also depends on the licensor, what the licensor wants to do. At that point in time, Disney was very much in the light of not wanting to promote anything X-Men related, and the only reason why Wolverine is even in there is because he's such a popular character. He's beyond any of those things. But yeah.
Yeah. By the way, this is one I forgot. They said, oh, it's been so long since these games came out that people may have forgotten about the X-Men.
No, it's not that nobody forgot about the X-Men.
People forgot about the X-Men. Mind you, and this is something Top Hat Gaming said, Logan released 4 months before this game dropped. Yeah, people forgot about the X-Men. Yeah, insane.
Nobody forgot about the X-Men. It's the damn company that literally, and then them essentially trying to cover their asses and make up these sort of like things. And like these games that last game didn't come out. Was it Marvel vs. Capcom 3 didn't come that far ahead of Marvel vs. Capcom Ultimate.
No,
in fact,
you're right.
It's the same. In fact, it's the same fucking game because they didn't even do any real work to it. They just they changed the skins on everybody.
Yeah, they just made them not look good, because at least like Marvel vs. Capcom 3 had that cool kind of like really inky look, Infinite was just trash, But again, even if you were, I know we're off topic, but I don't care. Even if you're a normie, right? Even if you're a normie. You know what was happening during that time? You had 3 successful X-Men movies back to back. You had First Class, you had Days of Future Past, then you had Logan. I know you had a couple of stinkers in there too. People, even if you're a normie, you knew about the fucking X-Men, But then again, X-Men, even if those movies didn't exist, normies know what the fuck the X-Men are. Everybody, X-Men, you can't with a straight face say, oh, people forgot about the X-Men. Are you serious?
Literally Marvel's most popular comic book.
For decades.
Decades.
Come on now. So that's bullshit from on Capcom's part. Anyway, it's just to get that rant off my chest. So yeah, maybe more Capcom SK3 will come. We'll see. All right. Oh, what's going on? Tumeke? Barry Burton in the house. Who? Yeah, I know. I forgot. Capcom said I forgot. I also don't care about these characters. I only care about the movesets. Ridiculous. All right, next up, Cuban Boss. He actually asked 4 questions, but I'll allow it because he's been back. He's been out for a while. He goes, been a minute, but still listening. School and work been keeping me real busy. Thank you all for keeping the content going. As always, it makes the third shift nights go just a bit easier to tolerate. And cool, man. Good stuff.
Good stuff, man.
All right. Let's see here. Okay, it was 3 questions. That wasn't a question. Anyway, with Forbes reporting that Helldivers 2 has lost 90% of its player base with no signs of recovery, is Sony feeling the pressure that these live service games might not be it, or do you think they're still going to keep trying? Well, yeah, of course they're going to keep trying. They're
going to keep trying.
Yeah. See people in the chat. See people in the chat forgot who the X-Men were. Maybe Capcom was right. Anyway, go on.
I mean, yeah, I think the thing about that it's dropping. It's because that's the way service games go. If you're not the installed one, it's gonna happen. There's gonna be a drop off. But I guarantee you, it didn't take an Uncharted budget to make that game.
Yeah.
And that's what they're looking for. They're looking for a game to get you subscribed to, not really subscribe, but essentially constantly, paying for DLC or constantly paying for content and keeping people coming back over and over. That's what they're looking for.
Yeah. Kishak goes, majority of live service games lose player base over time. This is a non-story.
Yeah.
Brian, do you agree with that?
Half and half. Because most do, but most tend to lose either very quickly. Again, take all examples of all the ones that have been shut down. Like they lost the player base incredibly quick, and they don't recover. With Helldivers, it is interesting because it was holding solid for a while, and then, ironically, around the time the PlayStation Network controversy thing has happened, it just seemed to just steadily go down after that. So I don't know what else they changed in that time frame, but something happened. So yeah, again, I think Sony will keep trying, but I think the issue that I have is that this was a game not developed by Sony. So I think they owe their success to the fact that they know what people like and they're able to tap into that. I feel like games that will be made by Sony companies will be overseen by Sony, and they'll ask them to do things that, for the most part, gamers really don't want. And I refer back to the days of SOCOM 4, where Sony asked developers, they forced developers to put in nonsense that the SOCOM fans really didn't want, like golden guns and changing their camera angles, as well as a bunch of gameplay stuff that I'm not going to go into. And ultimately, that destroyed the game, as all the SOCOM fans were like, "What is this? This is not SOCOM. This is some game trying to be SOCOM." And obviously, all the fans that they wanted to attract, mostly the Call of Duty guys, they were like, "This is not Call of Duty," and then the company doesn't exist anymore. So I think that will be the issue. I think the only way that Sony can get another hit is if they literally let the devs do what devs want to do with minimum oversight from Sony themselves, because I feel like any type of influence that Sony will have is not going to be good. So yeah, that's my thoughts. So as long as it's made by a Sony studio in some way, shape and form, or Sony has significant oversight, I don't think it's going to do well.
Yeah, it seems to me the game dropped off precipitously after that Sony nonsense. So I kind of agree with your point there, Again, I could be wrong, but I think that's what really killed that game. So once that bullshit happened, plummeted, okay, Kishak goes, there's 35,000 players on Steam right now. Yeah, that's good, but think about the numbers they used to have, So I agree with you, Brian. If Sony just leaves them alone, let them do the thing, they'll do better. But if they start mucking around, forcing people to have PSN logins, it's going to be an issue. And I think people in general are going to be wary moving forward when any of these online games from Sony. They're going to be like, do I need to do this? Especially the PC gamer base. They really don't want to tolerate that shit, It's ironic, isn't it? It's like Sony kind of did well with the PC gaming crowd with this game, and then they completely lost their faith. Very interesting how that worked out.
Very. I'm just looking at the Steam chart at the moment, and it's fascinating because the one game I thought that was never coming back is Power World. Okay, so Power World's at number 15 with about 70,000 concurrent players, which is a lot more than I thought it would have. And the only games, I say the only games that are more played than it include Final Fantasy 14, Baldur's Gate, GTA 5, Call of Duty, Apex, Destiny, Team Fortress. Like these are like the big heavy hitters, and Helldivers is number 27.
Yeah, that's steep.
And it's just edging out Left 4 Dead 2.
Wow. Damn.
So, granted, Left 4 Dead 2. Wow, DayZ's on there. What the fuck? Okay, ignore that. Granted, Left 4 Dead 2, I think, is considered to be like the best co-op shooter of all time. So that's still a really good feat. But yeah, I'm surprised that Helldivers has fallen this far. But again, maybe the whole PSN thing just did not recover, and it's a shame. Wow, even Siege is beating it at number 19.
Yeah. See, oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a long way from where it was before, you know?
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. All right, man. Good question there. Moving on. Another one from Cuban Boss. Oh, this one's a little long. Also, to stay on the Sony train, reports have recently come out that Sony has contracted someone new to handle their emulator scene to bring new life to their old titles, basically, and put it in their higher service tiers. But they mostly run either like crap or don't use the power of the PS5 to boost anything, unlike the Series X does on some of their older titles. Why do some of these companies look down on people who make emulators like RPC S3, for example, and not to try to subcontract them or something to have a product that already works on the PC scene and perfect it on the console side, instead of keep releasing these half-ass emulators that or take the Nintendo route and subcontract other studios to handle remaster ports of older titles? I need my damn Infamous collection, yo. That shit cannot be stuck on PS3. So I guess the question, it was kind of long. I guess the question is like, why doesn't Sony get like people who have a better track record with emulators than them?
Well, that's the thing. Number one, they don't. Their meat and potatoes is their new titles, so they're not going to make a huge investment in their previous titles. I mean, unless they can, and they've proven that they can just repackage their new titles and do a remaster or do a remake, and bump up interest. I would say one of the reasons why, and also on this situation, they are using the company that's doing these new PlayStation 2 emulations are actually people who worked on PC PSX. There's some people that worked on that original thing. So it's like, okay, so how come they're not applying that same knowledge that they, from the new thing? And then here's the thing. How much of a budget are these guys getting?
Yeah.
To do these things? So they're like, all right, we need you to develop, we need you to develop an emulator. All right, how much money do you got? Well, we only got this, and they said that's it. So, just do what you can, and then, as long as the game works on there, we're good to go. And then they're also making the promise that there are going to be more titles on there.
Yeah, and I also just thought about this now. What about whatever restrictions maybe put on them too, or demands or mandates that they got to follow too?
Yeah, I don't know if Sony has a thing where they're like, okay, we don't want these games to. We just want these games to work. They don't need to be better than they were.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, yeah, and like you said, budget, so time, all that stuff. Because if you're if you're just a regular emulator guy, you're just taking your sweet time. You're under no like, even if you don't have infinite budget, you have infinite time to do it right. With them, it's like, here, if these guys are working with Sony, they need to do it on a specific date by a deadline. And like you said, if they don't have any money, things could be a little bit of an issue.
Yeah, so I definitely think it's a multiple things. Like, I would say whatever Microsoft did, that crazy thing that they got working on there is utterly amazing. The idea that it literally it looks on their network. It's looks at the disc that you got, looks on their network and see if they have that game running, and then it'll run that game in a better form. It'll run it at a higher resolution, in a lot of cases a better frame rate. But that's also the big difference between that, is that they're using the same architecture. Whereas Sony literally for the PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 3, those have two totally different architecture. Oh, excuse me, and the PlayStation 1 all have different architectures. So
Yeah.
it definitely is something that needs a lot more of an investment in it. But it seems like Sony doesn't have any interest in, or PlayStation doesn't have any interest in really devoting some serious time to it.
Yeah.
And money.
Yeah. Blitz goes, won't the remastering engine just make it all work?
Well, I mean, the one thing about patents is there doesn't need to be any sort of working technology, and that the remastering engine, as hip hop called it, that is just them, essentially, putting that, essentially putting the pin on that thing that they're looking to be able to develop.
Yeah.
But obviously, it doesn't seem like it's a thing. It just seems like they're just going to use emulation and that's it.
Yeah. Kishak goes, they'll have to agree to license the GPL3 license if they use RPCS3. He also says Sony isn't going to spend hundreds of millions on a feature where 95% of people who will only boot up one game for about 20 minutes before releasing it shit and never using it again. Yes, not that big of a demand,
Yeah,
There just isn't.
That's exactly it right there. It's just not that big of a demand. I mean, obviously, as gamers, we would love to see a lot of these titles on there, but the PlayStation has the numbers and they see what it looks like when they have these titles on there. So they see that, okay, people are more willing to go out and buy a new game with a bit of a upscaled, some upscaling done to it than they would, an actual, just an old game that they put on there. So in a weird, odd sort of sense, Jim Ryan is right.
Yeah. Isn't it funny? Yeah, he's right in the end.
He's right in the end in that sense, because it's like, obviously to us, it's like, no, that's your legacy. Why are you letting go of your legacy? You're being stupid.
Yeah.
But on his end, it's like, well, we have the numbers, and we notice that these things don't get any sort of budget, any sort of money whenever these things sort of come out. When they sit there on the store, they just cost us money.
Yeah.
So I don't know. To be honest, in a perfect world, I would like to just see them just really make a legitimate effort to get these games to run. Like run as a better or as close to the original with some bells and whistles, or a little bit better. And from what John Letterman said on that Digital Foundry thing, they are slightly running better just because of the for the plain fact of running on the on newer hardware. But there are still things that need some work. But the thing about it is, like, the things that need work, will that affect every single one of those titles, or are we just stuck with whatever emulators packed along with that game?
Yeah. Kishak says the casuals speak and they don't use it. Yeah. I mean, it's only really the vocal minority hardcore guys I want, the backwards compatibility and all that. Let's just be honest, Yeah.
It's an unfortunate fact, but yeah, the loudest ones are the hardcore who still remember these games.
Yeah.
But it's all about it, just like music. It's the new thing just like music and movie. It's always the new hotness that always gets people attention. Why? That's precisely why Disney isn't re-releasing old cartoon or their old animated films, because I'm sure they're probably like, oh well, the minute that we release those films, it's probably not going to do that well. But if we decide to spend a little bit more money and put out a quote unquote live action version, or essentially a remastered version of those, a remake of those original films, that'll get new interest, even though it's, it's not even, for a lot of those films, they're not even like that different from the other ones, other than them being somewhat live action and using CGI.
Yeah. Barry Byrne, take care of that person, please. It's a fucking bot. Is there a space where the vocal minority actually holds the most influence? No. Well, actually, Twitter.
Well, I mean,
but for gaming, not really. Because again, they got these people want to make their money at the end.
For gaming, the way it works is if the majority is the one that's paying.
Yes.
If every single person, if they're making a decent amount of money off of something that's that is within that sort of hardcore gaming space, they'll do more of that. And we've seen it happen before. They've webbed and flowed because of the way, because those two things align: the hardcore and the and the and the new or the old.
Yeah. All right. Another one from Mr. Cuban Boss. With the coalition, not the coalition with a K, coalition with a C. With the coalition removing old Gears videos on their channel, people seem to think that signals the Gears collection is incoming. Has any company ever done this, removing old videos to replace for the fresh? I had no idea this was happening.
I don't know.
I don't know. Has anybody heard of this ever happening? Where they remove old videos? Like, I've heard of removing old games when you want to have a new version.
No, I mean, like on Twitter, we don't notice these things, but I'm sure these companies do this stuff all the time.
They may, yeah.
Removing older videos. Does it mean that that a new Gears collection is coming? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Rich, what are your thoughts on this? Are you aware that this was happening?
Well, I am aware that the collection is happening, but I didn't know about the videos being removed. I'm not really sure, but we do know that our very good friend Adam Vale was angry because this wasn't announced at the Xbox showcase. Because we know the collection is coming. I mean, clearly it's been on people's resumes, on their LinkedIn. They've worked on this, so it is coming, but I don't know why they didn't announce it yet. So,
yeah. But yeah, I wish we could answer the question better, but it's like we don't really keep track of this stuff. What do you think, Carlos?
No, yeah, it's like you said, it's like really niche stuff. Like there's, usually people don't watch videos that are old from video games. It's like, who the hell's watching Uncharted 2 videos today? Like, not that many. So it's hard for people to tell, like, when something gets taken out, unless it's someone that watches that stuff every day or every week. So yeah, it's hard to tell. It could be a lot. That could be the only case. Or maybe someone did a cease and desist. I don't know. It could be anything. But yeah, I feel like I don't know. I don't feel like there's a correlation between the both of them.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Yeah, but again, like you said, not many people are going in there like, oh, do they still have that old Halo video? It's like, no, people aren't really doing that. So I'm curious to know how he discovered this. I'm assuming some website talked about it, or maybe some Twitter post. I don't know.
Or Reddit forum.
Yeah, it's crazy. What the fuck's going on in my neighborhood tonight? Oh, you hear all this shit? It's crazy.
No, what's going on?
No, it's just sirens just been going off for 20 minutes now.
Oh shit.
All right. Okay, I'm glad you guys don't hear it then. I was like, that's a real New York podcast. You hear that shit. Woo, 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 woo. Okay, and the last thing here, he goes, on another note, much love for the cast. I hope Brett's back feels better. Sorry about your mom, Tony. And I also wanted to make a quick comment for anyone. Okay, so here's a comment. For anyone that decides to get, this is kind of fun. For anyone that decides to get Lollipop Chainsaw and support that game, go to Play Asia and get that shit there, which has a day one and date release with English support. Don't wait 3 years to get your shit from Limited Run's bullshit website. Look at me, I'm an insider now.
Is that the game that came out like a long time ago? Is it getting re-released?
Yeah, it's getting re-released. Yeah, but I guess
it's getting.
I haven't, Manny. You probably know more. I haven't been keeping track. I'm guessing it's all just digital. Is that why you said that?
I don't know. Maybe maybe there's
you
a
mentioned limited run. So
yeah, limited run does take notoriously long to get to games. So we'll see how that sort of stuff goes. But yeah, Lollipop Chainsaw is getting it's more of a remaster, right? Because they've replaced all of the original art, all the original characters and stuff with new textures and new stuff like that. So, but as I remember, it has the ability to switch it back to its original form too.
Okay.
So yeah, that's what. So it's supposed to be coming out real soon.
So it's a game like so.
It's as it was originally
No,
for the most
so it's
part.
limited run games only one making this physical.
I don't know if Limited has it
Because
listed yet.
I'm assuming that's why he made that comment.
Well, I know that. I mean, to be honest, like Play Asia is kind of weird. I know you just advertise Play Asia, but Play Asia is kind of funky and weird too when it comes to getting titles to them. I attempted to get Black Myth Wukong through them, the physical edition of it, and I don't know what the fuck was going on there. They have it listed on their site, but they don't tell you if it's out of stock. They just still have the page open, which is stupid. Like, if it's out of stock, then pull the damn page off.
Yeah. But yeah, again, I'm just curious because why is he mentioning limited run games unless this game is not getting a physical release? Which it may not. We've seen that happen a lot lately. But,
yeah, what they're
but I haven't
probably
been
he's
keeping up,
probably
so I don't know.
What's actually interesting is that in Hong Kong they still release, in Japan they still release their titles on physically. So you can still get a Japanese title that has or a title from Hong Kong which will have English dubbing and everything. So yeah.
Oh, this is an interesting comment here. JB Dominguez from YouTube. What up, fam? Really long time no see. JB from the Dominican Republic. Dímelo.
Dímelo.
I'm finishing a master in endodontics, so no time to live really. But I miss you all so much. Much love. Cool. Thank you, man.
Thanks, man.
Good stuff. I'm glad you're still keeping up with us. We are back on YouTube. But yeah, I can't really speak more on Lollipop Chainsaw. I never played the original game. Although I was curious, but I also heard it was mixed stuff. Like
it's your boy James Gunn, son.
Oh man.
The only reason I remember that is because the advertisement had like these hot chick influencers that had these small tees that had Romero on the
Carlos Romero.
You never know, but yeah, it's been a minute since I've heard about that game.
Yeah.
Seems like all the old Suda51 games are getting re-released. They just put out Shadows of the Damned recently, and so now they're doing Lollipop Chainsaw.
Yeah, but it says here, and I'm reading. Where am I reading this from? Rock Paper Shotgun. I didn't know it was still around. Original developers Suda51 and Grasshopper manufacturer aren't involved, and neither is original writer James Gunn. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not they're just reusing the old game.
Yeah.
So.
4K, 60 frames, all that good jazz is coming. All right, there you go. Moving on here, Presty71. That's Jason Presty from Twitter. Shout out to him. Whatever happened? Okay, what happened to the period years ago when destruction? He's talking about destructible environments. Was the hot up and coming game feature? It was the main thing. So many developers were striving for, but then it just disappeared and everyone stopped caring. How is Red Faction Guerrilla, a 15-year-old game, still my standard for destructible environments and gaming? Brian, I'm tossing this one to you because this is something you've been yelling about since Throwdown started.
It's an easy one too.
I honestly have no idea. I think, oh gosh, but screw it. I think the issue is that Uncharted happened.
Uh-oh.
It was a game that came out, people loved it, and then everyone said, "Oh, this is how games should be." And then game developers started folding into that mix, and then it all just started becoming incestuous. And then it's like, "Oh, people like Uncharted, so we make more Uncharted and less games that have destructible environments." And I think that's what happened because I honestly have no other understanding as to why we don't have more, because I'm still here just like I still remember the days in like early PS3 days where they were like, oh yeah, this PS3 has so much more power, we can do so many things, look at all the things we can do. And then now we're here 15 years later, give or take, and it seems like we're just getting the same games. And it's like, how is it that these consoles are what, 16, 24 times more powerful, and yet the games are basically the same, just look nicer. And it's like, this is not how I imagine games to be. Like, I expected at this point to say, okay, now we can actually start pumping out amazingly destructible games. But no, it's not the case, and I hate it.
Yeah, Carlos, you said it was an easy answer.
Yeah, it's they started focusing on higher resolutions. That's the trick. They the whole thing with Nvidia and AMD, they started scaling like crazy and better GPUs every iteration. Even with the pros, they're just better GPUs, not really better CPUs. So destructible environments are more CPU intensive type processes, and most of these folks are more worried about getting these games to be 4K, to be 60 frames per second, than to have that type of fidelity. So I feel like that's the biggest reason why destructible environments, the fat of destructible environments kind of just went to the wayside. Although a lot of games do it, but there's not that much of an emphasis, like Red Faction kind of keeps getting brought up because everyone thought that was just the beginning, but in reality it's looked like more like an end.
Yeah, that is interesting. Right, we finished all. Kishak has a question here. I'm going to toss this one in next. Do you guys think the length between the teaser reveal of Elder Scrolls 6 and its release date will be longer than the development length of Duke Nukem Forever? Oh man. How long? When was Elder Scrolls 6 announced? We could look this up.
I think it was back before Microsoft bought them, if I'm not mistaken, or
6 years
Oh
ago.
yeah, it was
Sometime.
before. It was before.
2018 June.
Okay, what about Duke Nukem? How long was it for it to come out? Was it not 8 years? Or something?
No,
Oh, that's more than
that was like more
8
than
years.
10.
Okay, 10 years. Okay, so hopefully it won't take that long, That's funny. Yeah, I noticed that, Barry. There's a lot more spam tonight. Fucking
14
Twitch.
years.
Damn, okay. They still got time,
it was 14 years in development. I don't know if it was the 14 years since it got announced.
Yeah,
to
that's
be fair.
what I want to know. Since it was announced. That would be something. Yeah, Barry,
yeah,
you're earning your non-existent throwdown paycheck tonight. Oh man.
Yeah, I think Elder Scrolls 6, I mean, it got announced 6 years ago, 2018. It's been 6 years. I feel like we still got at least 2 more years before we even hear something about a concrete release time frame. Like, oh, this is going to be fall of 2026 or fall of 2027. I'm pretty sure we're still 2 years away from even getting that announcement.
Yeah, I think you're right. All right, moving on here. Mob hits. Miyamoto was recently interviewed, and he mentioned that Nintendo only needs to have one big hit every 3 years. Do you think this logic would make sense for the other two, Sony and Microsoft, or does this formula only apply to Nintendo? For no reason whatsoever, Chris, why don't you answer this one?
It's a me.
It's a me.
Okay. I just stepped back. I just heard the end of that question.
Okay, I'll repeat it. Miyamoto was recently interviewed, and he mentioned that Nintendo only needs to have one big hit every 3 years. Do you think this logic would make sense for the other two, or does this formula only apply to Nintendo?
Is that actually true?
I don't know if he said that or not, but apparently he mentioned that. We have another question about Miyamoto. So I think he had an interview recently. Actually, this say that right there. Recently interviewed, and he said that.
Well, I don't think it works for anyone. I'm kind of curious why he said that, because if that was true, they wouldn't schedule Pokemon the way they have to intersperse the holiday titles and then have another big first-party title to go along with it once a year. So they don't really have one big hit every 3 years. I mean, if it works out that way, if they have one super successful title, but they've had multiple over 1 million sellers, and so that cadence doesn't make any sense. That would mean in the lifespan of the Switch, they'd only would have had 2 big hits.
Yeah, that's why I was confused. I'm like, haven't they had one big hit, at least one every single year? They have. Yeah. I know they have. You know.
Yeah, so the cadence doesn't make sense. And then to answer the overall question, the answer is no. That strategy would never work. It does. I don't know what he's talking about. Nintendo doesn't do that right now, and no other.
Oh,
company,
Chris, hold on. Some context, real quick. Sorry, Kishat goes. Miyamoto also said to be considered a big hit is to sell over 30 million.
All right, well, that's his metric. That's not the metric of the business side, though. I mean, they constantly brag about anything that has broken 1 million, right?
Yeah.
And I would think since Nintendo's a more modest company with more controlled budgets and things like that, they don't need that kind of excessive success. So what he's kind of success, I don't think anything has hit that except Mario Kart 8. I'm pretty sure that's like 30. Oh, Animal Crossing hit over 30 million?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Well, I've seen like 40.
Okay, so those are the 2 titles. So that's what he's saying, but that's his definition of big hit. I don't think that's an accurate definition for Nintendo. I think they've had multiple big hits. I think they've had at least one a year. And they've had some have sold. They have Zelda sold like what? Tears of the Kingdom hit like 6-7 million. I mean, those I would consider also big hits. I mean that's in the stratosphere. When you hit 30 million and stuff, that's like stratospheric success. To him, I don't know. That's crazy that his metric's like, oh, if it has to do over 30 million. That sounds like something Ubisoft would say. Like that doesn't sound like something Nintendo would say. Because they always, and on the business side, when I read the financial reports, there's always more modest expectations and more modest bars for success, right? And they've hit that with many titles. So to say like you have to get over 30 million, it's like, well, then yes, then you would be right. You've only had 2, but that's, big is, subjective, and his definition of big is definitely not shared by everyone else.
Yeah. All right. Moving on here. Another one from Mob Hits. With gaming already hitting its halfway point, and with us already knowing what's left to be released for the other half of 2024, which really isn't anything to be hyped for, can we actually see a DLC expansion win Game of the Year? He's referring to Elden Ring. So I guess he's asking, like, with such a lackluster year coming up in the last half of 2024. But here's the thing. We kind of weirdly answered this question already. Like, go ahead, Carlos.
No, we didn't. This was our definition of can it be Game of the Year, but Jeff Keighley?
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like that's why I said we kind of answered it. The question was, does a DLC deserve to be, or should it deserve, or whatever. It's something along those lines. So there's another version of the same question, I feel. But maybe I'm looking at it wrong.
I mean, there's not a lot of contenders so far. So, having Elden Ring, when Jeff creates his list of contenders, he's going to need firepower. He needs to sell the show.
Yeah,
he's not going to sell the show with Stellar Blade and what else came out this year? Friggin' Helldivers 2.
Yeah, go ahead, Rich.
First and foremost, Carlos and Chris, they are looking forward to Concord, so you got to add that game in there as well. We always got to take a shot at that game whenever we get an opportunity.
I'm pretty sure next week I'll be the one hyped for it, right, Rich?
Yeah, it's very possible. I just was going to say, well, no, there are some other games coming out. You still got Black Myth Wukong. I'm pretty sure that will be nominated. But I don't know if Elden Ring is going to be nominated. We already, like you said, Tony, we already spoke about this. It's definitely not going to win that award, but we'll have to wait and see. I think there's some other stuff that's going to get added to that list. I would be surprised if that's on the list, though.
Yeah. But like I said, because when we answered this similar question last time, I know it was me, Chris, and Brian were like, no, DLC should not be considered for Game of the Year. I know Carlos
Manny.
disagreed. Man, you too. Yeah. So I think it was Carlos. It was you and Brett that said it could be.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my stance is the same. No. Listen, I'm having a blast playing this fucking game with Carlos and Chris. Loving it. Probably the best experience I've had all year, but it's not a full game. So nope.
Yep. Yeah. The only way, to be honest, and I said this before, the only way I can consider this its own game is if you could access it without having to do those specific things in the game. If you could just go off and do it on your own, on its own, then I could consider it a new game. Like, you know how like we consider essentially, even though Miles Morales is theoretically a DLC of Spider-Man, being that you can access that thing on its own, it's its own game. Same thing with Uncharted Lost Legacy. It's pretty much a DLC for Uncharted 4.
Yeah.
But you can access it, outside of the game. Same thing with infamous First Light. That was originally a DLC, but you can also buy that game separately from the original game, so it can be considered as its own title.
Yeah, I think Elden Ring will win best ongoing game. It could
definitely win that.
Yeah, because I did say that was the solution. It's just have a category best DLC, problem solved.
Yeah, the best ongoing game, you could definitely give it to that because it is an ongoing game, even though this is probably the last time it's ongoing. But, Final Fantasy's been winning that for the last
Cyberpunk
3 years,
won
right?
fucking best ongoing,
Cyberpunk once won best ongoing game because of the Phantom Liberty DLC and all the other stuff that they did in between.
Yep.
So yeah, theoretically, Elden Ring would be in line to win that for the Shadow of the Erdtree.
Yeah, exactly. And that one's actually online, unlike Cyberpunk. It's crazy, man. All right. Does anybody else want to answer the question? Could Elden Ring win Game of the Year?
If it's nominated, I think it can.
Yeah. If it's even on the ballot, yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Because, Black Myth Wukong, that has to be great. And if it's not, it's got no business to being on nominated for anything. But but that's the type of game that if it hits, it could sweep the whole game awards.
Yeah, it's true. All right, man. Moving on here. Another one from Mr. Mob Hits. How can Steam offer such freedom, like free cloud saves and online play, but console still can't? I have an answer, but I'll let Brian go first.
Oh, good question. My first thought is pure greed. I think because Steam is... I think the consoles are doing it mostly because it makes money and they can charge you for it and you'll pay for it, and there's nothing really much you can do about it. And I think this is evident when Sony changed from offering online players free to charging, because they've seen how much numbers it was and said, hey, you know what, let's actually make people pay for this. Because for the most part, there's not really anything you can do about it. I mean, you can't play online without having to pay for it. So, yeah, you kind of just screwed in that aspect. And again, Microsoft did this first because reasons, probably money. So Sony followed suit, and then Nintendo probably will follow suit at some point. But yeah, I think it's mostly just greed, and they know that they can charge you for it, so they do, and there's nothing that you can really say and do about it, which is fucked up.
I didn't think you... I mean, I don't disagree with what you said, but I thought you were going to answer it the way I was about to. To me, it's pretty simple. Console players allow it. That's why they tried to charge, PC players online. They weren't having it. They were not having it, So it happens because console players allow it. That's why it happens, Kishak goes, this begs the question, would PSN be better or worse right now if it was still free? It was free for a while. It's free for a long time, you know?
Yeah, it was.
And it's
Question
paid
is-
now, and
hold on.
it isn't any better. I don't
I was
know.
about to say the same question. Like, is it actually any better since it was like paid for?
Not really. Not really.
Well, the thing is that what they're really doing is that they realized that Xbox was making way more money off of their subscription service. So they're like, okay, so how do we get these people? What do we do to lock people down behind a subscription service of our own? It began with PlayStation Plus, and then it moved on to that PlayStation Plus. Well, you had to have that in order to get online with your console.
Yeah, but
Same
Brian,
thing with the saves.
yeah, but Brian, what do you think about what I think, which is that this happens because console players allow it?
Yep. That is it.
That's it. That's it.
As I said,
I
like,
think,
they have nothing else.
I think
so
it's partially that, and I think a lot of console players, they not only allow it, they accept it.
Yeah, it's both. Yeah, they accept it. Yeah,
Like, oh, hey, well, that's the way I need to do it. Okay, I'll just put down the money
Yeah.
and do it. That's how they do it.
yeah.
You see it all the time. Like whenever
I think
those cockamamie-
I think accept is a better word than allow. I mean, it's the same kind of thing in the end, but I think accept is a better word for it. Console gamers just accept it, you know?
yeah, they just accept it.
Yep.
But for Xbox is actually a little bit different. I don't think their cloud saves are locked behind anything specific. All of their games, at least from what I noticed, that are any of their first parties, they automatically update themselves. So I don't know if there's a cloud, but I know that there's a syncing. They sync between the versions. So if you have Xbox on your Xbox and you run over to your PC, it'll sync the saves.
Yeah. It's interesting. But yeah, that's pretty much it. All right. Last two questions.
These ads,
What's up, Brian? Go ahead.
because I think the other aspect of the question was how can Steam like afford to do it, and I think just because Steam's business model is you pay us 30% of each game that is sold, and that's where the revenue comes from, and I think Team Fortress 2, the fact that it's still in like the top 5 most played games, and that has microtransactions, so probably all of this just adds together. But yeah, this is and I just noticed that it's actually every company that has games on PC offers cloud saves without you having to pay for them. GOG has cloud saves and they don't charge you anything. So yeah, it's fascinating. I just noticed that now.
Yeah, that is
I mean,
interesting.
Cloud saves for game saves, it doesn't really take that much data. It's mostly just a file with a whole bunch of values, and that doesn't really take much.
It actually does take tons of data. Like if you check the save files of your PS5 games, they're like hundreds of megs.
Yeah, but I mean they're not gigabytes worth of space. I guess that's my
but
point.
More part of that amongst what 50 million or let's say 10 million, because okay, how much did God of War Ragnarok sell, or the God of War games on PS5? Like 10-15 million, give or take. Yeah, so multiply that by 10 or 15 million, you have a good couple of gigs for that. And then of course when you multiply that with like Call of Duty games, and I don't know how much save files they have, and yeah, I think it slowly adds up. GTA 5, I don't know how big the save files for that are, but I'm certain it must be stupidly big.
Yeah. A couple comments here from Kishak. He goes, I think Xbox trained console users to pay for online. I don't disagree with that. They were the first.
Yep.
I don't disagree with that. He also says GOG limits cloud saves to 200 megabytes per game. I wonder how they enforce that. All right.
Yeah, I wonder what Steam does.
Yeah, I'm not sure. That is interesting, though. All right, last two questions of the night from Duke Nukem. With this generation of PS and Xbox being lackluster to say the very least. Can the next generation possibly be any better, given games cost more and more and take longer and longer to make every generation? I have little hope other than getting a dump of games that should have come out this generation but took too long. Oh, fuck. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know, Carlos, I want to get your thoughts on it because you and I have kind of had this, especially you, have had this, the feeling it's like these generations keep getting worse and worse ever since the PS4 generation, and I don't really have much hope for the next generation. I don't think it's going to be better than this one. And this one's terrible.
Yeah, I don't have much faith. It's just it's been a trend. I mean, something needs to buck the trend for me to change my mind. And this generation hasn't been that much better than the last one, probably worse. So I don't know what type of hey, next generation is going to be better, other than the fact that the hardware is going to be better, because that was sort of our line of thinking even before this generation.
Yeah.
We're like, okay, wipe the slate clean. We're going to get a new generation. Let's start fresh with new hardware. Hopefully this time we get all the games, but no, the whole COVID stuff happened, and then people use that as an excuse for delaying games for almost 4 years. Now people don't have that excuse anymore, and games are still taking forever to make. It's just this whole thing where things are taking forever to make, budgets are getting bigger. So games, it takes a lot for a publisher to greenlight a game, because it just takes so much money, because that's how much they're willing to spend, because they're only thinking about the larger reward when it comes to generating games. So it's like, oh, let's make this game that's a Redfall, that's a shooter game, that's a co-op game, that's not really original, but it's kind of like this game, this game, this game. There's not much originality to it, but they created the game, and they made the game, and most people didn't like it. The only person who liked it was Rich, but other than that, it didn't really do anything, and that's just how gaming is. Tony, you sent a video the other day about why music is getting worse.
Yeah,
that's across the board with all media.
True, everything.
There's just people not making games for the inspiration of it. It's more of a mechanical thing than it is an artistical thing. Making video games.
Yeah. Kish, that goes, it could only go up from here, but that's my stance on life in general. I mean, that's a good stance, but entropy is a real thing, man, and nothing could ever stay at the top forever.
Oh yeah, I have that feeling too, but with life in general, but with video games, that's something different.
Yeah. So no, I don't think I think it's going to get worse, and that's gonna make me ask some very interesting questions about myself, because if gaming keeps going down this route, what's the point of playing video games? Maybe I'll just do what I said I'd do like 20 years ago. If games get really bad, because remember, I've kind of had a bad feeling about games for like a good while now. Maybe I'll just play retro shit. I'll become like Metal Jesus, but not get fatter, as fatter than I already am.
Oh no!
Shout out to Metal Jesus, man. Maybe I'll be one of those guys. I'll just join his crew. Just be a retro gamer. Get myself like a big apartment or a house. No, I'll get a house, and the basement will just be nothing but retro games, CRT TVs and shit. Nothing beyond the PS3 era. Who knows, man? I don't really have any faith. I think gaming is going to get worse. I think entertainment in general is just going to get worse. There will be a tipping point, obviously. I just hope it's in my lifetime. I don't know. But within the next couple of years, I don't think so, man. Sorry. I can either tell you, what I think, or, sugarcoat. Oh, gaming's great. It's going to get better. Excuse me? Fuck that shit.
Well, back in the 90s and the 2000s, it was a gold rush.
It was.
People were going, creating studios on their own, making video games, and out of their garages, and because they were trying to make, they were influenced by making video games as an art. And
Passion,
people, it was passion, and that doesn't exist anymore.
No.
Video games is just made by the numbers. It's like, okay, it needs to have this, it needs to have this, it needs to have this, because we're gonna put in $20, $30, $40, $100 budgets on these, and it needs to make a lot of money. So let's have multiplayer, let's have loot boxes, let's have X and this. So, and that's just from the AAA perspective. The single A perspective, I mean the indie perspective, you get some good games, but for the most part, it's Castlevania type clones, Metroidvania clones that 2D scrollers, side scrollers, and stuff. So
Metroidvania,
yep, pixel art,
and random game where the plotline is that someone dies because somehow developers are so unoriginal.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm also in like the same category as Tony here. I don't think it's going to get any better. I think it's just going to get slowly. It's going to be a managed decline, Tony.
Yeah.
And it's, and I think we're kind of seeing it now with Sony's weird push towards live service games, which, as I've said since I heard this news, it's not the way to go. Granted, they want to do something different. Fine, but at the same time, we've all seen like these live service games have just come, crashed, and gone, and they very rarely have ones that succeed. I mean, in the last couple of years, you can argue that Rainbow Six Siege is possibly the only one to have succeeded in that aspect, because everything else has just gone down the toilet. Call of Duty, we can't use that because again that is the exception to the rule. It's Call of Duty, it gets its own, it's like GTA, they just get their own category, like you can't use them because no, they are outliners. Everything else, like what was it, Cliffy B made like 2 different like live service games, or like the hero shooter and then the other one that both failed. Like that retro 80s one, which I'm drawing a blank. And yeah, so I think it's just going to be a case of things are just going to get slowly worse and worse. And yeah, even with like the indie games, I'm slowly just starting to get like really numb to the nonsense. Like someone put out a tweet saying, why is it that we don't have more indie games that are inspired by like the PS2 era of games? And I think that's a very good point and very good question. Like, why don't we? Like most of the in games are like 2D Metroidvania games. It's like, okay, fine. This is probably where most people grew up playing, but the people that are in the roughly mid 30s, 40s, like are starting to be like the PS1 area, like the N64 area, and yet we haven't really gotten games like that, and it's interesting to see. So I think unless the indie games scene starts thinking more about, okay, let's be inspired by other games, then that's just going to stagnate. Because if I have to sit through another trailer of some abstract artistic game where the theme is death, I'll fall asleep because I'm just so tired of that. I think I'm more tired of that than I am of like 2D pixel art games at this point.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I
know, and you've been complaining about that for a long time, and I don't blame you. It's like, oh, this game is about how I'm coping with the death of my father. How many times have we heard that, you know? It's like, okay, whatever.
I got tired of this when Spider-Man did it in Amazing Spider-Man, so you think I'm going to, like, deal with it here? You know? Like, I even got tired of the dead child trope back when the first Watch Dogs did it. And it's like, oh, we're doing this again. So hence, yeah, I think games just really need a kick of the butt. They need a solid just kick to say, okay, you guys need to wake the fuck up and like look at things properly and start doing stuff.
I agree.
Ironically, and this is the really funny part, games made in the East don't have this problem.
Yeah, and Brian, just to really hammer in your point, this year, all the games I've liked have been Eastern games. Every single one of them, no exception. Final Fantasy, seven Rebirth. I had a Joe Biden moment right now. So Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Stellar Blade. Actually, go back. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Japan. Stellar Blade, Korea. What game am I hyped for? Wukong, China. And right now, I'm playing another Japanese game, Elden Ring. Right. So yeah, you're 100% right. I'm glad that Japanese games are still keeping things interesting, you know? And I'm also just glad they're back in general because remember, they had some dark times during the PS3 days, man. Japan in general had a hard time transitioning over to 3D, I noticed, right? And for a while, especially the PS3 era, there was dark days when they were trying to be more Western. And then towards the end of that, and Manny, you sent this great video about this, like kind of resurgence of Japanese games. I still have that shit bookmarked. I watch it every so often, where Japanese developers like, let's just make Japanese games again, and people loved it because as an American, I'm not trying to play a Japanese game that's trying to be a Western game. I'll play a Western game. Give me a motherfucking Japanese game, you know, because it's a different feel. So I'm glad that Asian developers are really they're the only reason I'm still playing video games. I'm just going to be honest, because all this nonsense coming out of the West right now, I'm not going to say it directly, but you know what I'm talking about is souring all of entertainment. So I'm so glad, you know, Japanese developers largely are staying away from it. There's still Square Enix kind of dips their toes in some of that stuff, you know, but some of these other developers are like, no, we're just going to give you what we do. Go ahead, Manny.
No, I mean that's the thing. It's like why are you? Obviously, they were trying to emulate. During the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 generation, Japan sort of got left behind. When it came to that, and they thought the solution was to was to essentially try to emulate what the Westerners are doing, which is not. And like the thing about it is, like you look at a lot of the Western titles that were getting all big and crazy. A lot of them were based off of Japanese games. What is God of War at its core? Devil May Cry.
Yeah.
But
I remember
even now.
Yeah.
What is current God of War attempting to be? Souls light.
Yeah. Yeah. But I forgot the point I was going to make. But no, you're right about that. It's that's what it was. So even Final Fantasy 13, they even said, the reason the game is more linear is because we're trying to be more like Call of Duty. This is a fucking RPG, and you're saying you want to be like a shooting game, And then remember, there was this one game. It was literally like a Gears of War game, but it's a Japanese game. It was like you're like a big beefy dude, and you have some girl with you and shit. You guys know what I'm talking about, cover base and all that. It was such a strange game, But yeah, I'm glad that era is over. But when we got to the PS4 era, it's like, fuck this shit. Let's just make Japanese games again, And they'll sell because that's what people around the world want, Why do you think anime does so well? Because it's different than the animated stuff we get here, Thank you, Asia, for keeping things going.
Why are subs better than dubs? Because their voice actors are better than ours.
Yeah, that's funny. Although, you know what I will say to that, you and I, we both watch it wrong. You really want to watch Japanese in its real form, learn Japanese and watch it without any fucking subtitles or dubbing. That's the real way to watch anime. You and I were watching altered versions, man. But either way, go watch good anime too. Why not? All right, last question here from To Make It and for the show. I'm seeing confirmation that Miyamoto gets paid $1.7 million a year and Nintendo CEO gets slightly more than $2.2 million. Do you think Western executives are overpaid or are Japanese executives underpaid? Interesting question. Chris, you want to jump into this?
Yeah, I don't know if primarily, like I said, Nintendo works with more modest budgets and salary scaling and stuff. So they're what they command, the president of Nintendo and Miyamoto as like a creative director, and now he's handling kind of their outside products and licensing and the stuff with Universal. That's commensurate for what they earn. Our CEOs over here are their pay scale is completely whacked out. Like, we have talked on this show, a ton about like what Bobby Kotick was getting every year. How the board would vote him like crazy raises. Like, he was making hundreds of millions of dollars a year in options and in pay. Right? Our pay scaling is out of control now. Like, I'm not, I'm not railing for any commie stuff here, right? If you are a success and you work your way up the company or whatever, that's fine. And as long as everybody's getting paid fairly, that what was happening at Activision and what's happening at EA and other places is definitely not that. CEOs are brought in from all sorts of different places. They have no relation to the company they are in charge of, right? Many of them are, come from outside of gaming, and then they command huge salaries. And how they game the system is they'll ramp up big projects, and then by the end of the year or a couple years in, they start cutting people, so they make their operating income shrink, right? And then the board goes, okay, and the shareholders and investors set caps like, here's what your operating income needs to be for you to get a bonus. So how they hit that bonus? They just start laying off people, hit that bar, get a bonus and a raise, right? Which is usually phenomenal. It's dwarfs what Miyamoto and Takeshi are making. Takahashi, I forgot who the president of Nintendo is right now, but it dwarfs it. It'll be in the tens of millions for most people. And it's kind of outrageous that they're allowed to get away with that. And you're kind of screwing people under you, especially the people making the products. And that's what they'll do. When they don't hit that profitability, they start resorting to underhand tactics to make sure they get paid. So I don't like that at all. I've called that out many times. So I think on the scale, yes, the CEOs in Western studios or Western companies, definitely their pay scale is kind of outrageous compared to what they do. And they never take a hit when there's failures. You think Sarah Bond is taking a hit with the Xbox, or
Yeah.
There's nobody at the top taking a hit for poor decisions, poor investments, poor planning. Nothing. Who ends up struggling? The developers, the creatives, everyone. They just get dumped, right? It was not their fault. They didn't greenlight the project. They didn't say, "Hey, you have to go do that." They just try to carry out the directives from the top, and then they get screwed. So, I think that's a problem on our end. That it should be more like how Nintendo is and Capcom and all these guys, and talent should be nurtured from within. Like, Miyamoto didn't start as this creative director. He was a creator. He is an artist. He is a programmer, whatever, and then he had ideas, right? So he worked to where he is. A lot of guys in there come up from in the company, so that is something that should be fostered here more, I think, and that would solve a lot of these issues. Because when the pay scale is coming up from within the company, there's not somebody coming from outside. Well, I'm coming from Budweiser and I made this many millions, so and now I have to run, whatever, let's say EA, and I want this much, and then they get it, right? Because it's like, oh, well, Budweiser does well. It's like, but that doesn't make any sense. Like, you're selling beer and now you're going to sell video games. That's the logic that goes into many of these hiring decisions for CEOs in Western companies, and it's stupid.
Yeah. Blitz says Bobby Kotick contributed fuck all to gaming compared to Miyamoto, but earns 10 times as much.
10 times? He earned 100 times. What was the... Wait, let me go back to the question.
Yeah, it was more.
1.7 million? No, I mean, Bobby Kotick was per annum was earning 30 times what Miyamoto gets, right? And his raises were outrageous. So it's on a scale that's ridiculous. And yeah, I agree with you 100%. Yeah, he contributed nothing. The Activision was in shambles, and now it's Microsoft's problem.
Yeah. isn't it? This might be a stupid question, but isn't it also like a matter of like maybe Japan just doesn't have as much money as like America, like, or is that just dumb? Like, because I'm wondering what is the difference in like pay scales? That it's big, you know.
Yeah, it's a big difference, but so like yeah.
And
You
by
could
the way,
say,
just to be clear, you know, I'm not giving any commie bullshit. Oh, it should be the same. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm just wondering
yeah,
what contributes to that difference because, like, even Japanese games don't have they don't even their AAA games don't cost as much as our AAA games. You know what I
right.
mean? Yeah.
But with the modest budgets comes modest payouts too, right? Like that's what I was saying about Nintendo versus other companies. Like definitely internal, and especially having worked there, like they don't pay as well for the same type of job as other companies in the West. Like uh, and that's true across the board for low level people, executives, whatever, sales, you name it, right? It's just that they command uh, such talent there because of the brand, right? So people want to be associated with the brand and then launch off to something else, or they stay. Some people stay there years, decades. The difference is like they, um, even though the scale of their projects aren't as big, that's also a problem with Western studios. It's like the budgets are too big, the studios grow too massive, right? And they start doing too many things at once. They need too many people, and then they start outsourcing. It's just this growing problem. It's like we need more resources, right? That's all people are to them, resources, right? And then what happens? Like stuff is over budget, your operating income explodes, and then what happens? Then mass layoffs after a product doesn't. You bet on the product doesn't sell, right? Then there's a massive shelling of people. That's no good. That's not a way to run business. Like the way that Nintendo does, the way the Japanese do it is like they scale their resources very conservatively, right? So they have a modest budget for things, a modest amount of people, and they try to make everything work with that modest amount of people. They don't start saying, "Hey, we need 5 orchestras to compose this thing," right? And we have $1 billion budget, so why not? Go ahead. That's ridiculous. You have to kind of scale your product down from the lowest level up, right? But with us, it's the top down. It's just like, hey, we're going to allocate this much money and throw as much shit at the wall until this sells, right? That's not, and that seems like the business model for most developers and studios nowadays in AAA, and it's not working. It's totally not working, and it's a bad model, and it just leads to failure. And then I add on top of it the DEI initiatives, and then everything is just in the toilet.
Yeah. All right, man. Good stuff. That was a good answer. All right, we're pretty much done here. Manny, do you have anything to plug?
Why, yes, I do, and you're probably going to keep hearing this until we've reached a week of the 10th. Anyways, coming this July the 10th is the 40th anniversary special for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, of which you probably know that I worked on the original Ninja Turtles, the 2003 iteration of Ninja Turtles. And what they did for this special is they got back a bunch of teams from who worked on different iterations of them, especially, obviously starting with Peter Laird and Kevin Eastman, but then also, all the rest, like Bryce and all that. And they also got myself, Carter Randolph, and Lloyd Goldfine, the showrunner and producer of Ninja Turtles, to do a special story for that. We also did, Kari and I did one cover, and I did drew one cover fully. And that's all coming on the 10th of July. Also, on the 10th of July, if you have seen my Twitter, I am going to be premiering the 42-minute time lapse of me drawing said cover that is part of this. So it's going to be all live, so it's going to be running through my system here, and I'm going to be doing questions and answers while the footage is running. So stay tuned to my Twitter, and go out and buy some turtles if you like turtles.
There you go. And Rich, what's going on with the coalition?
Oh yeah, so there's a lot of things we've been writing about, a lot of games that are coming out soon. So I would definitely say check the website out this week. Yeah, there's a lot of things in the works. So stay tuned. Not really any major game releases coming until August, but yeah, still a lot of previews and stuff that I'll be posting up. So be sure to visit the website this week.
Good stuff. All right, people, we're done here. Oh, I just realized something.
Whoa!
Fucking 4th of July, man. It's on Thursday.
Yep.
So we're going to be back on Wednesday, aren't we? Yeah, we're doing Throwdown on Wednesday. I just realized, oh shit, hold on. We're celebrating our freedom from the fucking Brits that day. Okay, so yeah, Throwdown will be here on Wednesday, people. You already know. Talking about gaming. I don't expect a lot to happen this week because it's like the week before 4th of July. But, you know, maybe, you know, well, then again, I was going to say maybe another influencer we get up to trouble. We wouldn't talk about that anyway, you know, so...
Yep.
Fuck that shit, man. All right. It was
what if a game developer or a journalist that turned out to be a pedophile?
Oh, yeah. By the way, regarding that whole Dr. Disrespect thing, this thing's just getting crazier, isn't it? May have been a plant, people. But, you know, whatever. We're not talking about that shit. Hold on, Brian. Did I miss something with a game journalist getting frisky?
Oh, no. I'm just saying because again, as you said, nothing interesting will happen, and it's like, yeah, usually that's when like something big drops.
Yeah, that's true. You know, man. All right. Anyway, we're done here, so make sure you follow Throwdown on Twitch and Twitter. Join the Discord where the conversations and the rumors are always popping. Also, if you have been watching us on YouTube and like the video, make sure you hit like, subscribe, and hit the bell to be notified of when we go live every Thursday and Sunday night at 10:30 p.m. Eastern. And sometimes, you know, we changed up if there's a holiday, like 4th of July happening on a Thursday. That's a weird week. I have Thursday off, then I got to go back to work on Friday. Like, what?
I mean, you should have took Friday off, man.
But I did it because half the other people took it off. I'm like, I better not take off. Somebody needs to be here to do work, you know? And then considering I had already taken 2 weeks off because of the whole mom thing, I'm like, yeah, let me not take a break for a while, even though I'm taking a break tomorrow. But anyway, we could find us on any podcast app by searching for Throwdown Show. That's 2 words, Throwdown Show. And lastly, throwdownshow.com to listen to past episodes. Links to everything down below. Once again, I'm your host, Tony Polanco. And tonight I was joined by Emilio Lopez.
See you next time.
Chris Seeley.
Hey, take care, everyone.
Carlos Romero.
Peace out.
Richard Bailey Jr.
Have a good week, everybody.
And Brian Manjoma.
It's the 1st of July. You know what that means.
Actually, I don't know.
Second half.
Oh, wait, something ended. That's right. Yeah, that's right, Brian.
June ended.
Yeah, June ended.
We're officially in the second half of the year now.
Yeah. Oh, something ended, though. I'll probably say this again to you, Brian, on Wednesday. But and remember, I'm not religious, but I have to say this way. I pray for you and your country, man. Fuck. 4th of July you may not be celebrating that day, you know?
I'll definitely be drinking.
Yeah. Actually, not maybe. You won't be celebrating because it seems like no matter what, you're going to lose. So my condolences to you right now, you know? Oh, man, shit is crazy. All right, people, we're back on Wednesday, and we did not beat Medicare around here. Later.